So here we go. We're gonna watch this video from Breaking Points. Um, so yeah, I guess apparently with all of the skyrocketing energy prices, I don't know if that is playing into it or not, but apparently half of all the data centers that were being built out are either delayed or canceled. So it's, in my mind, it's either one of two things. It is the political situation of everybody fucking hating data centers, which, yeah, I'm with you. Or the skyrocketing energy prices are going to make it too expensive to actually build out all of this infrastructure that for some reason they think we need so that we can, like, I don't know, create videos of Mickey sucking off Goofy or whatever, like I don't know why they think we need, trillions of dollars of infrastructure to create shitty little meme videos, but they seem to think so. So anyway, let's go ahead and see what's going on here. We'll see what Crystal Ball has to say about the AI bubble.
Very much related to the war, although a bit of a separate issue. We've been tracking some signs of concern, we'll say, in the massive AI sector, in the AI data center sector in particular, which has been the backbone of what's kind of kept the US economy afloat in spite of declines in almost every other sector of the economy. So let's put this up on the screen. I saw this with quite a lot of interest yesterday from Bloomberg. They're saying that half of US data centers planned for 2026 are expected to be delayed or canceled. One big reason is a shortage of electrical equipment such as transformers, switchgear, and batteries. US does not have the manufacturing capacity,
Wow.
forcing it to rely on imports.
What a surprise. America is not able to produce anything at all ever. America isn't able to produce like I don't know, like a cardboard box. It feels like America's production capability is so trash. It is insane. So one big reason is shortage of electrical equipment such as transformers, switchgear, and batteries. Oh, you mean all the things that we rely on China for? Like China, if China decided to shut these things off, our entire funny money system of finance tech that we've created to like prop up our recessing stock market, it will just all collapse in on itself if China, strikes one, like puts their pen down on paper one time saying, we're not going to allow them to have batteries anymore. Like, okay, yeah, our system is definitely not a house of cards. Yeah, totally. This is insane.
And very much, Sagar, related to the last segment we did on economic sanctions and economic power, most of those imports come from China. So we are, really betting the whole farm on this AI revolution. The particular approach that we have taken, that our AI companies have taken, is building out as many of these data centers as they possibly can. There's an insane amount of money being spent here. You also have a political backlash in all of these localities, that's really cross-partisan against these data centers being located in the town. And then while this big bet is being placed, at the same time, they're projecting out all these data centers that they don't even have the parts to build and, are trying to import from.
Yeah, this is how you know it's completely fake. Is they want it to be real so bad. They want to keep this gravy train going so bad. That's kind of, in my opinion, why they like pivoted so hard to actual like physical infrastructure like data centers. Like maybe sure, maybe it's somewhat important or whatever. But to me it feels like also they feel like we need a way to keep pumping money into this thing and keep requesting money for this thing. And like this physical infrastructure that requires actual, labor and creation and mechanical products, like electrical products and all that sort of stuff, is like the easiest way to just keep this gravy train going, or for as long as possible. I kind of get that vibe as well.
China, et cetera, but even trying to import them, they simply don't have the materials to build out what they have promised investors they are going to build out. So seems like a pretty alarming situation.
Well, let's also remember, what did Ryan and Emily cover in their very first show yesterday? Amazon facility got hit in the Gulf. And I
That's
actually
true.
don't think we can take this away from the war, because let's think about it. The AI data center is fundamentally needs cheap power. Like, the reason why we're in a crisis with data centers in the first place.
Well, then putting them in America is a bad idea because our energy is so fucking expensive. And it's like, I mean, in comparison to like China or whatever, China is just able to produce so much more energy than we are. They're like leapfrogging us heads and tails with how much energy they can produce. At the same time, we have a crumbling infrastructure that is that was basically built out in like the 1960s, and we have not made we've made barely any investments into like upgrading it and getting it better and more efficient and all that sort of stuff. Whereas China is just like moving on like way past us to like, oh, we're gonna have like 30% green energy, and we're gonna, so that we can like not have so much dependence on oil, and oh, we're also gonna be modernizing all of our electrical grid so that we're like way more efficient, and our energy can be, we're going to reduce the price of it by like 20% over the next 5 years or what. Like, China just has all of this stuff that they're planning on doing, and like the will and the know-how to get it done. And America just does not have that. And it's because, I mean, I always say it's because China is a state capitalist country where the state can come up with plans and then order companies to go do the things to facilitate the needs that they want as a country, like as a collective. And America is a capitalist country that is just purely at the whims of the, quarter oriented financial capital that exists in America. And so we will never be able to compete. We will never be able to outcompete China unless we switch to a state capitalist system. So yeah, that's my 2 cents at least.
Why it actually is like a binary choice between data center or our own electricity is because we don't have the electrical grid capacity. Right now, LNG and gas prices are actually pretty good here in America, and it's largely because we don't have the capacity to liquefy it and to send it abroad, which doesn't make it as much of a global commodity. However, it's very possible in the future that we may have to ramp up liquefaction and export in order to backfill a complete closure of the Straits of Hormuz. And remember, that's what Donald Trump wants. He wants Europeans and others to come and buy LNG and other product from America. Well, that would actually increase the overall price of our own electricity prices here in the US, which would make it much more difficult for these AI models and others and data center projects which need cheaper power. And then on top of all of that,
if only there was if only there was a giant like nuclear reactor in the sky that pumped out billions of like joules worth of energy every single second, that we could just like harvest and like take like just like an infinite energy source that we could just like harvest it, and we could take it and then use it to like offset the cost of our energy. Man, that'd be crazy, right? If only we had that. Oh wait, it's called the sun. Everybody, there's solar energy. We need solar energy. We need to offset the cost of this shit.
You have venture capital investment. A massive portion of venture capital investment comes from the Gulf. Also, it comes from all over the rest of the world, sovereign wealth funds, etc. Guess what? What's happening with all that money? It's drying up, or at the very least, they're having to massively pause a lot of their build out. So there's like multiple factors as to why this is all going to continue to spiral. And the AI bubble, itself was propped up on big tech valuations, which were obviously disconnected from reality. But fundamentally, like, what is the US economy? We don't really make a lot of shit. We just buy.
Yeah, finance, gambling, and OnlyFans. That's the U.S. economy. It's amazing. We definitely live in a real country, people. It's not completely fake.
We're a massive consumer economy. Well, we're all about to take a huge haircut on consumer spending because of gas prices and because of inflation, which just means, by definition, consumer spending is going to go down. That's going to drag down everything, not just AI bubble plus consumer sentiment. So you put all this stuff together and you can see how the real economy would go down, why an AI bubble pop is very, very much, I think, in an open conversation. And that was the only thing propping up our GDP at all was building out these data centers. It's another reason why the war, what a folly. What a folly. You're going to go to war and hit the energy supply of the whole world at a time when that's the only thing that's boosting the United States economy.
Yeah, this is one of the third order effects. Like Donald Trump didn't even think of second order effects from deciding to go into this war with Iran. This is like a third order effect. Like there's like infinite number of orders of effects that come from like major decisions like this. And yeah, if you want to make a good decision, you really have to think like 10 steps ahead of like how this is going to impact this. What am I going to do to mitigate this? Like all of that sort of stuff. I don't think that's going on at all in this administration. The more fascist an administration gets, the dumber it gets. So I really don't think they're thinking that hard about when they're making these decisions.
And then drop the bottom out of consumer spending too. It's a mess.
And antagonize China too. And at a time when you have not built out the industrial capacity to be self-sufficient. Far to the contrary. I mean, a lot of...
This is a little funny thing to me, but Sagar, I feel like, gets so sad about this stuff. My advice to Sagar is don't get sad, just laugh at it, because it is hilarious in like a crying clown kind of way or whatever, right? Like everything we're doing is so stupid and shooting ourselves in the foot. But at the same time, I always say there's always a silver lining to it. And that's that once we are no longer the global hegemon, we will have to turn inward and maybe focus on ourselves a little bit instead of being an imperial power all across the world, just brutalizing every brown person we can get our hands on. So Sagar, you don't have to look that sad. It'll be okay. It'll get better eventually. Okay.
During the Trump administration. In fact, we've gone backwards in a lot of regards with respect to trying to build out our own industrial capacity. So you're, antagonizing the entire world. Supposedly, the way that the Trump administration and these heads of American AI tech companies, the way they see things is this like existential race versus China to be the first to dominate the AI sphere. And yet we're still in the most basic level, fundamentally dependent on China to be able to import these parts for a bunch of these rare earths, all sorts of portions of this. We've also talked about helium being disrupted in the Strait of Hormuz and how that ties in as well. So just on multiple levels, we've created a massive crisis for the AI industry that we've decided to apparently bet our whole economy on. And those cracks are just starting to show. There were some, and let's put F3 up on the screen. It's hard to say what's going on here behind the scenes, why these decisions are being made, but we've got Claude Code users who are hitting usage limits faster than...
Okay. Yeah, this is kind of what I was expecting to happen eventually, is a lot of the cost of this stuff, they're doing like the Uber model, right? Where they like you make the product so cheap by like eating a bunch of losses at the beginning until eventually you push out the like in Uber's case, like the taxi companies or whatever, and you become integrated into just the network of like travel, and then you start ramping up the prices to be like eventually more expensive than what people would get for a cab, right? So that's like the Uber model. And I kind of always assumed that these cloud and like various AI people are doing the same thing, where they are eating a lot of costs, like in terms of like the amount of power and energy that's needed to generate these glorified Google searches or whatever, or in Claude's case, generating code or whatever, right? So eventually they have to start raising the price to get to actually like start offsetting all of those huge losses that they have to eat, right? And I just fundamentally think that as they raise the prices, I don't think that this product is like good enough or like beneficial enough for the most part. Not all of them. I would say the coding part is actually like somewhat productive or whatever, and people might be willing to pay for that. But I think a lot of like the chat GPT shit is going to be found out to be like, people will just, they'll just like go with a Google search. If they can Google search for free versus like it costs like $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever to use chat GPT, I think most people would be like, okay, I don't need that. It's not worth it. So I think that's a fundamental problem that they have here, is that I don't think that they can ever get the cost low enough to justify the the cost to the consumer. But I could be wrong on that. Who knows? Like, we'll see in the future.
Expected, and they're putting in some
It's just my
limits for
thoughts right now.
people who are extensively using Claude, sort of trying to pull back, especially during the highest use hours, pull back some of the usage of Claude. You also had this story, F4, where Sora, the video generation site from OpenAI, has been being completely shut down, ending in April. This was announced with a lot of fanfare. This was a central sort of core promise and achievement of OpenAI. The idea was that Sora was going to be a major part of their plans for the future, and now that is being shut down.
Okay. I'm going to have to move on at this point because I don't have a ton of time and I really want to get to this last video.